All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite warlock practicing necromancer. And tonight I want to enlighten you on some books that I would recommend for financial growth and prosperity. I've gotten a lot of questions over the last week on what deities can I work with to bring forth wealth, but also what books would you recommend to utilize? Now, if we're going to talk about spirits, let's say demons for an example, you can utilize Boone and Viney. Now, one of these beings is great for financial prosperity, much like if you're working with Mammon or, perhaps Lucifer's Raphael, if you want to get into pact working with him. Especially from the grimoire traditions, such as the Grand Grimoire or the Grand Grimoire Black Dragon. Prime examples of him taking you through and you're seeing treasures and you grab as much as you can as much as you can take as he's walking you through the spiritual plane. Now, like I said, I would personally recommend Viney and Boone to you when it comes to demonic aid in financial prosperity, namely because of the fact that number one, sorry, my arm just fell off my leg. Number one, you have one that brings financial prosperity. The other is physical protection. Okay? Now, this protection is something that will do great for you in the long run. So, outside of that, I would recommend powders such as. What's up, buddy? You doing, monkey butt? Yeah?
I got back.
Okay, Daddy's doing a live video, okay?
Okay.
Alright. So, anyways, yeah, I'm babysitting my son and the 3 dogs tonight, so. So, anyways, as I was saying, if you want to go into the powders, you could always utilize, say for an example, basil, thyme. Let's see, basil, thyme. You can go with amber. You can go with sea salt for prosperity. And then you could also go with parsley too. So there's a lot of different things you can do. Put them in a grist bag, and wear the, keep it on you until you get paid. I had a friend that did that powder, and he ended up doubling his quarterly income, which was awesome on his part. So those are 2 aspects. Okay, number 1, you got the spirits you can work with. Number 2, you got powders that you can make. Now, as for books, there's very few books that I would recommend to you. And believe me, I have my own private library, so that there's a lot that you can do. So, like I said, the first one is you got to understand what liabilities and assets are, how to balance your books and all that stuff. So, Robert Kiyosaki was the one that I would recommend on that one to you. He really puts forth diagrams. He spells it out for you. Yes, he uses the board game Monopoly a lot, and he kind of bounces back and forth to his childhood, which was kind of cool, until you find out that he actually took that from some friends of his from 1978 and actually wrote a book on the process. But underneath the, water underneath the bridge and all that stuff, He's still a great teacher. I do recommend his book. Very insightful, and he has written quite a lot of books in how to prosper financially, either from real estate or by just doing your basic, budgeting and limiting, spending and stuff like that. Very, very good. So, the next book that I would recommend is a more modern day book. I think this came out just a couple of years ago. It was called The Fair Tax Book. And it's by Neal Boortz. Very, very good book. Easy to read, just like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it really teaches you about taxation, just like Robert Kiyosaki did. He really taught you about the 16th Amendment, how the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, but also the difference between them is he actually, Neal really gets down to the nitty gritty and teaches you about the various different types of taxation, which is something Robert Kiyosaki never did. More so, he breaks it down to what you can do and what this new taxation could do for the American people. So the Fair Tax Book, or you can go to fairtax.org, I think, if I remember correctly. It's a website that you can actually go under and read all about what the fair tax is and what it's about and why it's important to get it, passed through Congress and all that stuff. Very, very good. What are you doing?
Playing Roblox.
Ah, Roblox. Okay. The third book that I would recommend to you is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. Okay. Now, this book here really teaches you about credit cards, about purchasing cars, how to deal with the car loans, how to get your homes and stuff like that, and really get a good price on them. The other day I did a video, and I started the video out by telling you a little bit of a story about what my son's mother and I did. Because she was going for a new car, and as soon as I started asking specific questions, the guy's posture shifted, and he started getting nervous, and a lot of different things. But that's where I got those questions from, was from that book there. And it's a dry read. It's a very dry read, but if you can stick with it, you apply it within about 6 weeks, you're going to be out of debt. It's a great working tool, if you will. The prosperity of that is going to benefit you because within 6 weeks, you're going to be out of debt if you stick to it. More so, if you continue applying it, you're going to start putting money into your own pocket. So that was pretty cool too. Now, the next book is called Money Mechanics, or Modern Money Mechanics, and it's by the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. Okay? Now, I recommend this book, namely because of the fact that to understand finances, to understand the modern economic system and how to maneuver within it, this book teaches you, I wouldn't call it a book, it's more like a pamphlet, really. But it really teaches you how to determine what is beneficial and what is not. Where does the money, benefit the bank compared to you? This individual who wrote this little pamphlet really broke it down. Taught you the difference between dollars and coins, which Robert Kiyosaki also did a little bit, but not as in depth as this little pamphlet did. Then he goes into checks and stuff like that, paper. Really a no-go. So when it comes to the banking system, it's always deposits and redeposits. That's where they're getting the finances from. That's where they're prospering from. So understanding money, really understanding it and how it works, realizing that if you put $1,000 in your account, only about 900 of that is taken out immediately and given to somebody else. And like a casino, as long as they have it on hand to prosper you, when you need it, then it's all good. But when they don't have it, that's when they're fucked. to understand that there are three different types of banks that you got to deal with, and each one has a different responsibility. Like, we all know about the Mint. Okay, we all know about the Mint. This is the places, you got two of these, one on the East Coast, I believe one's over in Colorado, I think, and the other one's down in Philadelphia. And these are where the money is actually made. So then it goes from there to the Department of Treasury. Now, I mentioned that the Department of Treasury has every bit of information on you, more than the IRS, more than the government does, more than the state does. They've got everything you've ever done and purchased in your life. So the Treasury is what dictates what can be released and where it goes. Then you have what is called the federal banks. There is roughly about, like 4 to 6 of these banks in the U.S. alone that it gets distributed to, and then from there, it goes down to what is known as civil banks. And these are the banks that most people deal with, like the credit unions and stuff like that. So understanding the flow of money and how they dictate what is, beneficial, what is prosperous, and what is not, value-wise. It kind of goes back to the 18th century where gold and silver would sit in the account and not take interest. So to understand that the reason they don't like it is because they can't make money off it. So in reality, gold and silver are going to benefit you more than them. So that's just an example of why I recommend this book to you. This little pamphlet, it's going to benefit you in the long run in that aspect, especially if you're getting into stocks and bonds and investing. Understanding how this stuff is applied and really getting into like the APR and the interest rates and stuff like that, understanding how to sway it into your benefit instead of theirs. It just takes a little bit of education, a little bit of enlightenment. Like Robert Kiyosaki once said, just take a couple of courses, like on finances and or publicizing type courses, and then apply it. It works. And the newest book to my collection, which I got last week, is called The Creature from Jekyll Island, and it's by G. Edward Griffen. A second look at the Federal Reserve. Wow. Amazing book, right? Now, you remember what I just said on the other one? By the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. Wow. So this one came out in the last few years, but this is the 5th edition. Originally, this book was written and published. Let me see here. A long time ago. See, 94 goes back even further than that. Very, very good book. But this one here goes into a lot more information. It really delves deep into the Federal Reserve, how it operates, what it does, the purpose of it, everything. That's one of the reasons I got it, because I wanted to expand my horizons when it comes to investing, more so when it comes to business, more so, even more to my family. Okay, because I want money coming into my pocket, not going out. And since the government is more about greed and taking 60 to 70% of all your income from you, how many people in America today understand exactly what or how much you actually make per paycheck before any taxation occurs? Now think about that for just a minute. They're taking 60% right off the bat, if not 70%. How much of that are you actually losing? So if you're working, let's say 40 hours a week, and you're getting paid bi-weekly, that's roughly about $1,500 per paycheck. That's about $3,000, if not $4,000 a month. Wow. Especially if you're getting paid 3 times a month, because we all know that maybe 2 or 3 months out of the year, you got 5 weeks. So therefore, that's 3 paychecks in a month. Now, let's say, for an example, you get paid weekly and you're getting paid for 40-hour weeks plus overtime. Even in the medical field, you're looking at roughly about 90 to 110 hours per week, per pay period. You know, my son's mother, you know, she's mentioned this a few times about how much PTO she's got, you know, how much money she's got coming to her because of this overtime. And yet they're going to come down on you for overtime, but yet they need people to work more. It's kind of duality and hypocrisy, but then you start paying attention to what is called the labor hours. You know, I didn't know anything about the labor hours until I started working for Dina. You know, and Dina, she basically owns a series of Dunkin' Donuts in the area, opposing Lima, who's the other one in my area. So you never even understood this until somebody sat there and explained it to you. You've got what is called the labor rights union, you know, the labor union that dictates all your rights and stuff like that. But then you've got what is called the labor hours, which are associated with your pay. So basically, when it comes to business, people can only work according to what they sell. Okay, so you tend to understand, okay, so this is how this works. But then you get into what is it that they actually do. And I actually brought this up to a couple of individuals that work at a specific Dunkin' Donuts. I said, what is it that you think Dina does? I said, what do you think that the boss does, you know? They couldn't tell me. They're like, well, they sell donuts. It's merchandise. I said, no. She's in real estate. Because if you think about it, even Robert Kiyosaki said, the founder of McDonald's, went to a college party or a one of those brotherhoods things, if you know, the fraternities. There we go. And the guy asked, what do you think it is I do? And everybody said, well, you sell burgers and you sell shakes and food. And he's like, no, I'm in real estate. Now think about it. Even Robert Kiyosaki was in real estate. Look at Donald Trump. He was in real estate, but he's also in corporate aspects, big business. Wow, really? So how do you go from employee to small business to big business to investing? You got to have that knowledge, right? So even if you go into an older book, let's go with one that I didn't show here, but it's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Think about that for just a minute. Think and Grow Rich. That is a classic book. That is a very good book. All right? But it gets you thinking. It says, hey, if I can think it, I can manifest it. If I can manifest it, I can bring it into reality. So how do I go about doing this? Very, very good thing. And he gives a couple of good explanations of a kid that really wanted to work with a specific inventor. He had no money, so he couldn't do a train. He couldn't do a ship. He couldn't get a carriage. Couldn't do nothing. So what does he do? He hops a train. And he just train hops the way across America. And ironically, about a year ago, there was actually a friend of mine that's on social media. I think it's on TikTok, if I remember correctly. I haven't seen anything from him lately, but he was train hopping across the south, the southern U.S. So last time I heard. But yeah, like I said, there's so much that he can do. But he ended up he went to this inventors corporation. He says, hey, I want to work with you. And he's like, fuck you. No. So what happens? He gets a job working for this guy. He starts at the bottom and he works his way up until the opportunity arises. And next thing you know, he's got his name and that inventor's name on the merchandise. being sold. Nobody could sell this merchandise, but yet he came up with the prime example on how to do it, and he succeeded. Wow. Okay. Now think about that for just a minute. If you can do that, imagine what you could do with just a little education and a little self-motivation. You know, I believe it was Bob Carlson who said it best. If you think that you need to get self-help books, you've already gotten your self-help because you've already thought about going out and getting these books. So right there is another example of think and grow rich. The question is, are you going to do it or not? That's on you. So when people ask me, how did I go from being an employee to becoming an investor? This is how I did it. Okay. So with that said, it's just about finding the right books and the right knowledge. Sometimes it's about learning from other people. And yes, I do have Robert Kiyosaki's books. Yes, I have Donald Trump's books. Yes, I've got investing books. Yes, I have other types of books, including what I just showed you here. So guess what? Your turn. All right? Faruqi, welcome. Ads free, welcome. Wira Sukma, welcome. STBW3HR, welcome. Vlad, welcome. I'm doing awesome. So, yeah, that's why I retired like 15 months ago. So, and I'm only 47. It took me about 3 to 4 years to put everything in play. But then I started benefiting me and stopped caring what others thought. So, like I said, if you apply yourself, you're going to do the same thing. So, with that said, I want to thank everybody for jumping on here with me. If you like what I do, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Feel free to hit that notification button so you don't miss future videos. Also, whatever you preach, always put out more than one source. I've done that, and I constantly do that. And then also make yourself available to the public because you are responsible for the things that you do and say. All right? Have a good day, and until next time, I'm out.